Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Texte's another podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Lashley, who was the ex-CMO of Hashoo Group, and she is also a hospitality sector specialist. We are going to ask her a lot of questions about that what will be the future of tourism in Pakistan, and we are also going to know about her personal story so we all can seek inspiration from. So, by the way, before going for anything, Lashley, I'm really thankful to you for sparing out time from your busy schedule to do this podcast with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, I can still hear you, Sama. So,
Now I cannot hear you. Wait.
oh no. Well, I can hear you just fine. So I'll
Okay.
try to bring my mic a little bit closer.
So I was hear you a minute back, but now I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what changed. This is kind of how things go, right, with technology.
I can hear you a little bit, but it's okay. So, Lashley, first of all, thank you so much for sparing out time from your busy schedule to do this podcast with us.
Yeah, of course. Let me see if I put these in. If it helps you, I'll try to do the same. See if this gives you a
Thank,
little bit more sound.
thank you so much. Can you please introduce yourself for the audience that, at its core, who is Lashley? How you describe yourself?
Can you hear me a little bit better with these in
Yeah,
to
now
see?
it's fine. Now it's fine.
Okay. Um, so how would I describe myself to your audience? Well, I'm from Colorado, which is a mountainous state in the United States, and so we drive when we're really young. We get to drive when we're 15, and in the winter time it snows, and the worst thing about driving in the snow, for those who grew up in like Bourbon or in that area, is that your windshield just gets covered in ice and snow. And I used to hate to get out, getting ready for school in the morning, and have to scrape the windshield, and your hands are cold and you're late, and you want to just get on the road and get moving. So sometimes I would, instead of clearing the entire windshield, I would just clear maybe this much space and know that I knew how to get to where I was going, and that as I got on the road and the heater started to work a little bit better, that little space that I could see through would get a little bigger. Now, why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because this is a metaphor for my life. Because people would ask me, how did you end up in Pakistan? Why did you go there? And especially, there are a lot of misperceptions about Pakistan in the world. I've always said Pakistan needs way better PR, and they need a lobby in Hollywood to get some better, more positive images about the country. But because I knew that I can get to where I'm going, trusting my instincts and knowing that I'm a good driver, and even if I can only see this much, and that's all I knew. I had visited Islamabad with friends for a weekend. I lived in Dubai for many years. I had a great time hiking in the Margalas and enjoying the amazing food, and people were so friendly. That's about as much as I knew about what it would be like to go live and work in Pakistan. But I trusted myself, I trusted my instincts, and I trusted that the warmth of the Pakistanis would kind of clear that vision for me to like make my way through this really big challenge to go to a new country and a new job in a really important industry that's growing and changing. And so that's how I like to say I ended up in Pakistan. And I've ended up a lot of other places actually along the way. I was in Tunisia, in actually arrived there on 9/11, which was a really interesting time to be in the Arab world. And I went to study Arabic. And then I worked in Dubai for many years. But yeah, just kind of having that courage of knowing that I can get to where I need to go and just kind of trust to clear just a little bit of vision and then just go for it. So I ended up in Pakistan and I had 2.5 years of an incredible experience. And I think that's why I get to be privileged to be on your podcast today.
Wow, I think it's really great to have you, and it's an honor for me hosting you. By the way, your story is really impressive. I've been through your profile, and you have a very diverse corporate experience. And you just shared a little of your story. By the way, in 2019, I want to start with that when it comes to global travel and tourism industry, the contribution to the global GDP by tourism industry was 10.3%, but when it comes to Pakistan it was 2.8%. How you look at Pakistani travel and tourism industry, that what will be the future of tourism industry in Pakistan? Yeah.
This is a topic that I've spoken on quite a bit about. I've had the privilege during my time in Pakistan, there was so much passion and drive to build this industry. I think the leadership of the country and the business leaders saw the potential, knowing those statistics, and knew that there was still so much untapped potential in Pakistan, that there was a lot of drive to raise awareness about the industry itself and to get people excited about investing in it, about working in it. And so I'm still very optimistic that things will continue to grow. But there are a lot of things that need to happen that are happening. And that happened just in the 2.5 years that I were there, that I saw a lot of changes in. The first thing is that you need people to work in the industry. And it's still a tradition to push kids to work as doctors, engineers, and lawyers.
Yeah,
But
it's still
right,
going on over here in this part of the world. Yeah.
that's not going to go away. But the more we see success and the more we have leadership from leaders in the country and leaders in business promoting and working with young entrepreneurs and with people who come out of school and are just looking for a nice, reliable job. You talked about the worth, the value of the tourism industry. This is something that's driven my career and my interest in the industry for a long time. A former CEO that I worked with used to say, people always need a place to sleep and eat. And so hotels will always be needed. And
Yeah.
that's, one element of the tourism industry. And then, of course, relatives, visiting people, staying connected with people, and staying connected with your homeland is a really important part of tourism. So those are the factors that kind of are the base, the foundation for why this will be an industry that will continue to grow. And that growth in Pakistan will really be facilitated by more and more younger people coming into the industry and finding that it's a good job for them and that it's something that they can make a life with. Because people join the tourism industry and they travel the world, they learn leadership skills, they become excellent diplomats in terms of just being able to relate to people, problem solve, be great at customer service. So there is a lot of potential. And we have a lot of doctors, lawyers, and engineers. We need more people to embrace new businesses. And what I've also advocated for, which I think Pakistan has a lot of potential in, is entrepreneurs helping to move the industry along.
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, that youth has to take it. Youth can take this country ahead, and because the more and more youth is gonna join the travel and tourism industry, it's gonna grow more faster. By the way, there is one thing that we people, we all globally faced. We are still in a crisis right now. The pandemic is not gone; it's still here. So, and when it comes to travel and tourism industry, it was one of the most vulnerable industries across the globe. So when
Hmm.
it comes to restarting tourism, globally there is a debate going on, although the tourism has been restarted with new SOPs. But globally, there was a debate that sustainable tourism should be the new normal. Why sustainable tourism is important? Can you please tell for the audience to make them understand?
Well, I mean, sustainable tourism is important, and anybody that goes to the northern areas who normally might go to London or Switzerland in the summer and decides, well, I can't travel this year, goes to the northern areas and sees the amount of garbage and refuse that's just thrown on the side of the road, and the encroachment of little businesses that aren't done in a way that really creates a nice community and leaves the roads open for more and more cars to come through. I think people will see, and there you go. That's why sustainable tourism is important. And it's also important to be sustainable in a bigger sense of the word, not just about the environment, but also sustainable on an economic level. And that's the most important thing, because if we're encouraging young people to enter into this industry, it needs to be a job that can last a lifetime. And it has been in the past. I mean, if you go to Islamabad Marriott, you will meet people who've worked there for decades, who survived the blast in 2008, who've been there, who are dedicated, and they have made a wonderful career out of being in the industry. So sustainable tourism needs to respect the environment that it is. It needs to be an economic boost to the communities that they operate in, and it needs to be built in a way that allows it to continue to grow and employ people so that they can have a great job for their whole life, and obviously keep the beauty of especially Pakistan, which is such a gorgeous country, but all the countries where people like to go and visit.
Yeah, I think this is really a great message that we need to preserve the beauty, we need to respect the environment, culture, and the local people over there. So if we can preserve all of these things for the generations to come, I think this is really, really important. By the way, when it comes to what are the major challenges regarding inbound and outbound tourism in Pakistan, which people can fix in public private partnerships, small startups can contribute towards those challenges?
Well, I've always advocated for more progressive visa regulations. That's a key, obviously, for inbound for Pakistan. Um, and, a lot of countries do like for like visa rules. So as Pakistan loosens and opens itself to approving visas from other countries, they will often reciprocate. And so that also allows outbound tourism to thrive as well, because tourism industry isn't just about hotels and restaurants for people in Pakistan. It's also travel agents and people that book flights and the airlines from Pakistan that go outbound. So it's important to make sure that all of those people have a source of customers. So visas are important. And while I was there, the government did a really good job of loosening those restrictions, making it easier to apply online. Um, it still has a way to go, because usually you apply online and then you have to call somebody and get a favor. I'm coming back for a wedding, and I'm just already thinking about the 5 different people I have to talk to get my visa. But I'm confident that things will increase. So that's one. You need that. And then the great thing is that there are so many startups. I was lucky to meet so many people in the entrepreneurial space and work with the incubators and the startup system in Pakistan. Companies like Ascendant Travel, which is employing hundreds of people and allowing people to be able to book online. This is really important. We do everything else on our phones. So when I first got to Pakistan, everybody's like, well, nobody books a hotel online. They want to call the manager of the hotel, and they probably did the same thing for flights. But we do everything
Yeah.
else online. I mean, we have
I
Deeply
think there is a
impactful.
lot of, as you just mentioned, that there is a lot of opportunity when it comes to Pakistani travel and tourism industry. Like normally, like what you just mentioned, even still, what happens is people want to call their friends or family, and they're looking for recommendations rather than going online and searching for hotels and these things. I think, but things are improving day by day, and hopefully, the travel and tourism industry will grow eventually. And yeah, so, by
Yeah.
the way, there is a thing that you are also a leadership consultant. I want
Mm-hmm.
to ask you that you said I heard you saying that empathy is the key. What it means? Can you brief us a little bit on that to make us understand? Because when it comes to budding entrepreneurs, the startups who are growing, when it comes to even when it comes to hiring, when you say empathy is the key for leadership, either you want to be a leadership of today or tomorrow. So when it comes to that, how we can hire those people, like how we are gonna guess that these people have these qualities when it comes to C-level team.
Well, you have to build a team before you get to sea level. So one of my favorite analogies or metaphors to use for this actually is traffic in Pakistan. Because if you're a Westerner and you're used to driving, it's funny. The city that I'm from in Denver, the streets in the residential areas have people park in front of the houses on the street, and then there are two lanes. But when I'm driving down the lane, usually the person coming the other way will pull over and kind of move out of the way so that I can pull past. And I laugh because I spent so much time in Pakistan, and Pakistanis would see six lanes. So I always like to say that the traffic in Pakistan is a very great symbol for the potential of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because where Germans or Americans might see two lanes or maybe even one, Pakistanis, because mashallah, you have incredible spatial awareness. There's a truck and there's a bike with five people on it, and maybe there's a horse and carriage coming, and there's all these different vehicles going different ways, and somebody's turning from the wrong lane to go. And everybody gets along, and they're courteous and they're respectful, and the empathy that they have for one another shows, because you don't have fist fights, you don't have gunfights on the road every day. Where
Yeah,
I'm from, that
people
happens
are
more
used to
often. And
with all
so
of these things now.
exactly. So this is empathy. This is saying, wow, that guy just turned in front of me, and he really should have been in this lane to turn, but he turned in front of me. He must need to get to where he's going, or I'm going to give him a break. Or that that person is coming down the wrong way, down a one-way street, because they don't want to make a U-turn to get to where they're going, and so maybe she needs to get home, maybe she's had a hard day. So that empathy allows your traffic to flow. It creates room on the road for everyone. So it's not just the unicorns and the like perfectly funded Ubers that are coming out of the Pakistan. It's also the home kitchens, and it's the B&Bs that where people welcome people into their home for homestays. That is the entire ecosystem, and it's much like the traffic. It flows. There's room for everyone, and empathy, kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, understanding where they're coming from, allowing for mistakes, allowing for right turns from the left lane, is really what is going to drive things forward. And it's an important skill for leaders, because you need to be able to see what's happening around you on your team and understand what the motivations are and what the needs are on the team, so that everything flows like a beautiful road in Pakistan.
Wow, I think this is such a nice description of empathy, like to understand what other people are feeling, because people really share their feelings. Like I think this is something which is really great, and leaders really need to have that. By the way, you work with the hospitality sector as a hospitality sector specialist for USAID Samia Challenge Fund by reviewing and evaluating concept papers for SME growth grants. When it comes to entrepreneurial landscape of Pakistan, what are your views on that?
I there's so much potential, and I again, I just think that Pakistan, just walking through a city or driving through a city, you can see so many examples of that entrepreneurial spirit. And it's not just in the elite, it's not just the people that come from Western universities or from the best universities in Pakistan. It's everybody, and there is so much potential for ideas. And so continuing to have great mentors available. I can think of so many of the great mentors, business leaders, people with great experience who come and work and review the proposals, who help with the pitches. That's so encouraging, and I think a really good sign of the health of the ecosystem. Um, what I did see a lot of was just kind of taking concepts that worked other places and reproducing them in Pakistan. I think that there's a lot of creativity and original ideas that could come from Pakistan that need to be promoted more, that are Pakistani solutions to Pakistani problems, instead of just importing something that's been done in China or even India, because it doesn't always apply. And I think it comes down to believing in that and taking pride in the creativity that is there and that exists naturally, and letting everybody be on the road. So not just the most educated elites, but even people like, I think of somebody very dear to me who comes from Bari Imam. If you go into that neighborhood, you see so much ingenuity and creativity and just things that they've invented or they've put together. It's really inspiring, and I think entrepreneurs would do well to kind of open their eyes to those places and really see how people have solved problems in a creative way, Pakistani problems and Pakistani solutions.
Yeah, I think this is something which is really great. Like Pakistan have a lot of problems, and every single problem is an opportunity for an entrepreneur. So when you start looking at a problem, and you when you start looking at a problem, like you also try to find a solution for that, you can turn it into a huge business and you can create employment for others. But
Yeah.
as you just mentioned, that relevant problems, like if like anything, you cannot be a copycat all the time. You cannot copy all the things and bring them over here, and which don't fix which are not according to the need and according to the circumstances over here in Pakistan. So we need to create things locally over here. I think this is something which is really great. By the way, let's go back to COVID. Like we all went through a thing which is a kind of historic proportion for all of us, for all the people in globe, and it's like a where you were that moment. So when you were during your quarantine, how you spent your quarantine days, and what was the positive and negative impact on your life because of COVID? Yeah.
Um, well, I'm an introvert actually, so I enjoyed quarantine at first. I love to read and exercise, so I was okay. I enjoyed it, and fortunately, I had a pod of just about 6 friends, and we were all healthy, and we committed to kind of limiting our interaction with people and being very honest about where we were going. And so I was able to see people, which I think made a big difference. Now I'm in the mountains in Colorado, and I spend a lot of time outside and just enjoying long walks. I've read so many books. I'm on track to finish 60 books in 2020. So I've really enjoyed that. I've read a lot of fiction, which is also one of my number one tips for creating more empathy in yourself, is reading fiction. So that's been great. And I think the challenge of this time is just the prolonged uncertainty, and it really weighs on everybody. And especially if you're a sensitive person, or even if you're a driven person and you're very goal oriented and you have this natural kind of drive and momentum to keep moving forward, being forced to slow down and and make smaller goals um, has, I think, been challenging for a lot of people, and also very revealing in terms of what matters most, where you can release some habits that weren't serving you and embrace new habits like walking more, getting outside, getting that fresh air, um, reading more, and just really taking care of your health, I think is one of those great things that's come out of it. I know for me and for a lot of like my coaching clients, that's been something that's been very prevalent.
Yeah, I think when it comes to any crisis, like there are a lot of positive and negative impact, but you can even still look if you look in at anything in an optimistic way, you can be in a better state. So, by the way, there's one more thing that what is your favorite travel destination in Pakistan, which you traveled before and you really want to travel again, and you also recommend others to travel that place?
My favorite place in Pakistan is Kot Fateh Jan. Is that
Court,
right?
Court Fateh
In
Jang.
Punjab. Yeah,
Oh,
Kot Fateh Jan in Punjab. I love the rodeo in the United States, and the closest thing I could find in Pakistan was bull racing by the late great Prince Malik, God rest his soul. He has
yeah.
really championed tent pegging and bull racing, and I got to go visit his village and see bull racing. I think I was the only woman standing on top of a pickup truck and watching like thousands of people on what was probably a CPEC road that had been cleared. And I watched bull racing and just visited the farms out there, and just it's my favorite place in Pakistan. It's hard to choose one. It's very hard to choose one, but it's definitely a place that I dream about going back to, seeing the equestrian sports, just being around the people, being out on the farms, and just it's so beautiful and magical, and it's a place that I would love to go back to.
Wow, that's great. Even I'm living here in Pakistan and never visited Court Fateh Khan. Like I was not expecting this place. I was thinking maybe
Yeah.
Natha Gali or something like Gilgit Baltistan will be the answer, but it's totally different. Like I think we all should visit that place specifically for the pole racing. And by the way, there's one another thing that you did so many things in life and you have such a huge career. What drives you? How you keep your passion alive?
That's a good question. I I have a sincere desire to connect with people all over the world. My father's an artist. This is one of his paintings actually behind me. So when I was young, I was about 11 years old, we moved to the Native American reservation, and it was the first time in my life that I was kind of in a different place. It was in America, but the language was different, the people were different, the culture was different, the food was different, nobody looked like me. And I experienced what this was like, and I knew um, that it was a very valuable lesson to learn what it's like to be different, but also to learn to appreciate other cultures. And so I think that's really one of the driving forces in my life, is to learn about other people and connect with them on a deep level, to really understand them better, because we're all so different in the world, and there are so many different cultures, but at our core we all want to love, we want to connect, we want to have our families, we want to be outside and enjoy the fresh air. And so connecting with people and helping others to make deeper connections in their life and find purpose in their life is definitely what drives me and has taken me all around the world and makes me interested in reading voraciously and being a lifetime learner and always a truth seeker, and so I'm really grateful for those experiences that have come, and hopefully have plenty more to come.
I think your journey is an example for everyone, and you worked across different cultures. You whenever you travel, like I was reading somewhere that wherever you travel, you adopt that culture. I think right now it's a 30 minutes podcast, but I really wanted to ask you that how you adopt all of these cultures. Like you basically belong to US, but you worked a lot in Middle East and Pakistan. How you adopt all of these cultures? But last, at the end, I want to ask you that what is your lifetime advice for the listeners?
Okay, how do I adapt to new cultures? Well, it's it's so interesting when you leave your own culture, and you can do this even in your own country. And that's a great thing about Pakistan and the U.S. is they're both so huge. You know, in the U.S., I'm from the mountain west. People here are really down to earth. They love the outdoors. They love to fish and hike and hunt, and they're very, life is kind of a slower pace, but they're very athletic. And then you can go to the American South, and the food is so different, and people talk in a different way, and they play different games for fun. So you can do this even in Pakistan. But what I love is just being able to be immersed in something new and different, because it helps you challenge your own thoughts and beliefs. In America, we line up, first come, first serve. You stand in line, right? Well, when I first went somewhere else where people don't really line up in a queue that's linear and they just kind of push to the front, I thought, this is crazy. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to push to the front. And I learned how to push to the front, and it felt crazy. And I thought that I was breaking the rules and it was silly. Um, but it was fun, and I did it, and it got me places that I needed to go, and I got things that I needed to get done. So I think being able to just open your mind to, like, okay, well, that's not the way that I was raised to do it, or I think you should do it. You shouldn't just drive the wrong way down a one-way street if you have somewhere to get to. And then you just do it because everybody does it, and it's fun to just kind of jump in with feet first. And then you also understand people better. I think understanding the language of a place where you go is really important. That helps you understand people better. I love the different expressions. In Urdu, there's some great expressions that just explain things better than you could ever explain in English. So I really like those kinds of things and knowing those. And so that's always been something really fun. It's like a game, and it allows you to open your mind to just the things you've been programmed to do. You know, we're raised a certain way in a certain culture. That's the way it's done. There's no other way. And then you go somewhere else and you're like, wait a minute, nobody's dying. They're doing that totally different and it's working. So maybe I'll try that. And I think that that makes you really dynamic and more adaptable in life in general, and able to be resilient and handle problems, because you know there's more than one way of doing things. So
Yeah.
that leads me to my life advice for people is get outside of your comfort zone, get outside of your social circles, talk to people, meet new people. Even if you can't travel outside of your country, travel in your country. See what you can observe, the way things are done differently, the way the food is made differently, the way people dress differently, and see what can you let go of from that you're holding on, that you've just been programmed to do, and what could you take on that would make your life richer.
Yeah, I think this is something which is really great. That travel has a lot of benefits. It opens your mind. This is the only thing you buy that makes you richer, as you just mentioned that. I think traveling is for everyone, and it has a lot of benefits. Like it opens up your mind, it makes you think in a different way, and there are a lot of other benefits. By the way, lastly, thank you so much for sparing out time from your busy schedule to do this podcast. And it's really nice talking to you, knowing about your story, knowing about that what you think about entrepreneurial landscape and travel and tourism industry of Pakistan. By the way, I just want to give a last message to all the listeners who all are avid travelers or who travel in Pakistan or wherever they travel. Every time you travel responsibly, because show some respect for the environment, culture, and people. By this little effort, we all can minimize the negative economic, environmental, and social impact, and we can contribute to improving the well-being of local communities, and we can move ahead towards a better tourism in Pakistan. Thank you so much. We will be back with another podcast, as you just mentioned about Andre Ascendants. Andre is our next guest for the podcast. Tomorrow we are gonna host him.
Good.
Thank you so much,
Very fun.
Lashley. Yeah.
Thank you for asking me. It's always my pleasure to share my fondness for Pakistan with other people. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.